I have a lot of leaders around me in my various businesses, and I see sometimes that some leaders struggle with confrontation. They struggle with, a team member might disrespect them in some way, or might not deliver work to the right standard, and they might struggle with like pulling that person in, knowing how to do that and how to address that situation. And the avoidance of that conflict obviously just causes a bigger future problem, because you're setting a new boundary, right? You've let someone jeopardize or cross a line, and if you don't, I'm assuming that if in the moment you don't address that, they're going to cross it again in the future. This is really about like conflict resolution, interpersonal conflict resolution. And when you've been disrespected, how do you deal with that?
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it back. What have you done to let people think that they can do that to you? That's the first thing I'm going to say. What standards have you created, or what things have you set up to let people think, I don't have to deliver on time, I can't be disrespectful, I can't show up late for work? That's the first thing I'm going to say. So
I would hazard a guess that I in the past set a standard for this.
Right.
Or in some way that I showed up in the past.
That's the first thing I'm going to do. Is there something I have done to create an environment where a person thinks that it is okay to do these things? That's first.
Why do you go to I?
Because I'm the one who sets the tone. I just interviewed a former chief of station, John Franchi. He's former CIA. And he managed a lot of people and a lot of strong personalities, because you got officers and all these different people. And he said to me, you know what I learned? He said, it is easier to have boundaries and be a little bit more sturdy and more authoritative in the beginning and then pull back, than to be everybody's friend and then try to put those boundaries in place. The latter doesn't work. He's like, you do the first, you let people know what you expect of them, and then you can pull back a little bit. But you always have to toe that line. So that's what I'm going to say first, and he's right. What tone have I set in the environment that I'm working that people think it's okay to do these things? That's one. Now let's say sometimes I have an outlier. I have a person who does these things. As soon as it happens, you have to address it. What people do is they don't address things, they let it go. It's small, and then it happens again. It's small, then again, and then we become resentful. We become pissed. Why does this person keep doing it? Why don't they self-correct? Again, it goes back to me. Why haven't I addressed it? People are afraid of conflict. Conflict can be done in a great way. You have to think of conflict think of it as like I'm competing. I can speak to you, not raise my voice, not make it ugly, and debate something with you. In the White House, next to the Oval Office was the cabinet room. The cabinet room is where the president would sit with all his heads, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Homeland Security, and they would discuss and debate policies, laws, and they would compete. One person would say, I don't like this idea, this is why. Another person would say, well, this idea doesn't work, this is why. You have to be comfortable in doing that. Most people are not. They don't understand that you can sit somebody down and say, hey, this happened. Can you tell me about that? I had someone who worked for me and she had made a mistake on something. And so it was a pretty big mistake. So I called her up and I said, hey, you know what, this and this happened. Talk me through it. And I let her explain. And, she said, I'm sorry, this and that. There's a reason why. But the one thing I did, I said, because I wanted to rectify it, because I didn't want it to happen again. I was like, is there anything I can do to help make your job better so you can be more successful at what you do? Because I want to hear, is there something I'm doing or not doing that's impacting her decision-making or the way she sees things? So it's a twofold. But you also, too, when it comes to respect, and this is a whole separate thing you brought up, with the respect part, just make sure people are truly disrespecting you and that's not your ego that feels disrespected. Because sometimes people can't take somebody pushing back. And if my goal is to make a great product or business deal or transaction, then everything we do should be in furtherance of that. But what happens is, Stephen, people are so afraid of hurting other people's feelings or stepping on other people's toes. Nobody says something, and that's worse.
It's sometimes difficult to know the difference between whether this is a violation of my boundaries or this is my ego. Because, I think of much of the reason why people won't confront something in the moment is because they start double guessing whether they're in the right, they're in the wrong, this is acceptable, this is unacceptable behavior. And that kind of mental debate of Is that actually acceptable that they treat me like this or that they did this? Or am I just being triggered because, of some kind of emotional issue that I have? And that kind of conversation often results in them taking no action, which means they tolerate that behavior, whether they should or shouldn't. And then it becomes the norm.
It's interesting. So I'm a very, I'm quick to jump and I don't want to say go into attack mode, but I have it. I'm Greek. I grew up in New York and Queens. It's just on. So I always have to, my immediate response is what? Internally, inside voice. I pause and I'm like, hang on. Is this person telling me something or doing something that I should hear? Right? Maybe they're telling I made a mistake and they're trying to help me make something better. Or is this person crossing a boundary that I don't want them to cross? So then I will sit that person down or have a conversation. Hey, can you tell me about this? What were you thinking when this happened? Walk me through it. But I will tell you, non-judgmental, right? You don't want to show it. I call it the poker face. Just don't show it and let them talk and just see what they're thinking. Most people, as they're talking to you, Stephen, they will on their own realize as they talk through it what they made wrong. What they did wrong. Also, you lead by example. So sometimes I'll make a mistake. I'll miss a deadline with someone I work with. And I'll say, listen, I'm sorry. I was traveling. I own it. Tell me what I need to do to fix it. And what I have found when I do that, the people I work with, when they make a mistake and I'm like, hey, what happened with this? You know what, Evy? I'm sorry. I missed the deadline. I own it. I'll fix it. They reflect back what I show them. So I think it also shows in the behavior. And then there's sometimes, Stephen, sometimes you'll bring somebody in that just should not be there. And then you also have to make that hard decision because that one person, it will destroy the fabric of the group. One person can't do that because everybody else around now watches that interaction and they're thinking, well, Stephen doesn't care. I was like, he's letting this guy do this, so I can do this, right? I compare it to when I teach. So as I said, I'm an adjunct professor. I teach college. I teach undergrad criminal justice. First day of class, when they come in, I tell them no cell phones. I was like, and the reason I have you do no cell phones is not because I want you to respect me or this and that. I was like, I owe you an education. I owe you an education. I know some professors don't care, but I tell my students, day one, I give a shit. And because I give a shit, I don't want to see the phone in the class. However, I do something else. It's an influence strategy. I give them autonomy. I say, however, you can leave this classroom anytime you want to check Facebook, go on Instagram. I don't care. You have that autonomy. But in here, I want you to respect the sanctity of the classroom because you deserve education and I owe it to you. And I set that standard. And side note, there's a video clip that I showed day one and you're actually in it. I didn't even know who you were. There's a clip of you and some others. It's a montage of videos together talking about social media and how it impacts you adversely and cell phones and cell phone addiction and all that. And I actually play that clip. And can I tell you, it resonates with everybody and I have no problems the rest of the semester. But I set that tone and I tell them, if I see the phone, you're going home. No hard feelings. I'm going to pause class and I'm going to send you home. And then if somebody violates it though, I do it.